You know, there's an actress and an activist who does not hold back, which we love. And as you know, we love to go there here too on the show. She has her debut album, Planet Nine, out right now. Rose McGowan, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Yay! Thank you.
No, seriously, I was talking about, to everyone outside of this, being like, oh my God, Rose is coming on the show, and how much charmed meant to me as a young kid, a young queer kid growing up, also navigating Christianity in a Southern household. And I just was like, I have to tell her how much she meant to me, regardless of how much anyone tells her this, because I know you probably hear that all the time.
I love it. Thank you. And honestly, I feel like I raised a generation of kids by doing that show, in a weird way. Like, I have so many people that are like, I grew up with you. And I'm like, well, good. I hope we instilled, obviously the idea of magic in your life, and obviously the idea of morals, but without the creepy people that say morals normally, because they're not morals, usually moralistic in real ways. But also, and so many queer kids, and girls and women, but it was all over. I mean, I met like an 85-year-old Russian taxi driver who's like, I am made, and I'm like, great. And it was an honor. It was an honor to serve. For me, it was a strange period in my life, but I am so happy that we literally brought joy to people. And can I say the weirdest thing?
What?
Ooh, what?
I was club called the Abbey in West Hollywood, of course, one night. Yes. And this kid comes up to me, and this beautiful little brown boy with a lot of makeup, trying to understand him over the music. And he goes, I just escaped from Baghdad. I come here so I can be free and be me. Saddam Hussein, his sons, Uday and Qusay, they love Charmed. And I'm like, all right. It was like one of the only things besides Saddam TV that was allowed in Iraq.
I wonder
so crazy.
I wonder who he identified with. What was it, like? I don't know, the source.
I think that's right. The source of all evil. I kind of hoped, maybe I was like, well, I hope you like my power the best, because I think I had the best power.
You did most definitely have the best power.
Dude, I could orb on out of this coronavirus shit, right?
Right? So you're talking about the Abbey, and I know because we're obviously a queer station. Do you, how do you identify as? Because I know you've talked a bit about being with women, but
I don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just don't. I was raised in a really different way than most people. Raised for the first 10 years of my life in a commune called Children of God. And of course the government labeled it a cult, and that's fair, but people get really scared of the word cult. But I'm like, yo, no offense, Ryan, you grew up in a cult too. And I just grew up in a really hardcore one that was so small and closed that we didn't really have contact with the outside world. And we had all these kind of invented rules, but so do you. And when I came to America, everyone was like, it's so horrible how you lived. And I'm like, well, Duke that was in the group. So I grew up in palazzos, which are it'd be like a mansion, but from, say, and rolling olive fields and orchards and just deep beauty and amazing food. And then I got sent to America when I was 10 to a military school. And that one is when it started sucking. But in the cult, they taught us some really interesting things. They tried to be like utopians. What if we could raise all these children in a way other children are not raised? So I was raised, and this goes back to how I identify, excuse me, without manners largely. And what that did for me, they had a whole thing. They didn't want the children to know they were a race or a gender. Now looking back, I didn't have one mom. They called all the women nannies, but it wasn't like what you think of as a nanny. So you just kind of get passed from nanny to nanny who takes care of you. But it was looking now, I didn't know this then because this was just my world. And they were trying to all be like super minds and super souls, and there was not any emphasis on the outside. But now looking back, I had one nanny from Ghana, one from Uganda, one from Britain,
wow,
American, Sweden. It was like everybody. It was a lot of people seeking something different, right? Because the Vietnam War had just ended, and they were trying to. Pearl,
are we okay on the Wi-Fi? Ryan?
Thanks, Pearl.
You're cutting in a bit in and out, but I think it's usable.
I'm thinking maybe we could possibly have you just, because what, can you call in? Because we have a number that's connected to this.
Yeah, I can call in and we don't have to do video.
I want to do video.
I kind of want to do video.
It's unless you go back, like
I want to do video
the first place you were at. Oh my God. And it allows us to see each other. The first place you were at had it. It's like you're cutting in and out. Like some things are, it's just interesting. Cause like, I just want to make sure your sentences, some of them are like
going
getting
in and
a
out.
bit choppy.
I don't know what, you guys, I'm in the jungle.
Yeah,
I know. That's why we so appreciate you.
And I appreciate you bearing with me, everybody who's going to watch this, bearing with the fact that it's going to be annoying, but just hang on. You'll get the gist of it.
Yeah, I think we'll get the gist. I just wanted to make sure we're okay because Ryan's on the tech side. So like if he was like,
okay.
But I was understanding what you're saying. I mean, about the nannies and the, and it
right.
seems
So
like
I was raised like, but really without mirrors. So what if, and so all the people that were in this group trying to a new way of thinking, a new way of acting, they raise the children as utopians. What if our children were raised to be superminds and not a race or a gender? So I had no identification. I was never told, most people, they're 4 and they go to school, you're a boy, you're a girl. And that's when the divide really starts. And that's when they really put the straight jacket of heterosexuality on you, the straight jacket of what you are as a boy, what you are as a man. Here's you as a girl. Go out in the world and be polite. That's your only defense, girls. Like, that kind of crap. And I had a break from it. So when I came to America, I was able to be like, no thanks. They put a pink shirt on me the first day of school. They changed my name from Rosa to Rose. They told me, and they did the class in the pledge.
No.
Like,
we cut off at the Rose story because this is really interesting. Wait, just hold for a second. You were like going good, and then the Rose story got cut off, which I think is.
No.
Let me try a different Wi-Fi. It might lose you, but I'll reconnect.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this better?
It's like you're sharing such important, beautiful stories about your identity.
Is this better?
Yeah. Continue. I mean, I'm not as worried about the blotchiness. It's more about your audio.
Right. This seems a little better to me on the audio side.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, audio. The audio has been good. It was just
maybe it was just me. So yeah, can you just like you said you went to school? Can you start and they changed?
They made you change your name. Yeah.
They put a pink button-down shirt on me, literally like a smock thing, and that's what girls got. And I was like, what? Because I'd grown up just. Now looking back, I was wearing brown overalls, brown shirts, and had short hair. There was no emphasis on girliness. It wasn't a thing. And then at 10, but I was old enough, whereas most people that go to school in, the traditional schooling system, they're so young. And I think that's when they get stolen. And that's when they get told who they are. And I had a period of grace where I was old enough to know, like, to be strong in myself and say, no, I'm not going to conform. Why would I conform to you? I don't like how you think. I don't like I don't like your footwear. I don't like your food. I don't like really anything. And you're scary, but you're telling me I have to be like you, and you're mean. You throw things at me every day. You call me ugly. You call me freak. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm just different. And America has this thing. They really just, if you're different, they want to crush it. And it's important to them because there's this real cult-like way of thinking in America. And if you don't subscribe to that ideology, they don't want to study it and be like, oh, what's this beautiful butterfly? I've never seen these colors. They just want to, let me smash that like it's a moth on my, on my lamp.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that, right? I think when we talk about this, sexuality and gender, it feels like you have to have the answers. We're all taught that you have to have the answers. This is the correct way to do it. And there's no way.
It's all invented. So I always try when people ask me how I identify, I'm like, I just don't. I don't even really identify as a woman, to tell you the truth. I don't identify as a man. I don't identify really as non-binary. I would like to say I'm non-binary of thought.
Interesting.
And I apply that. For me, I live in my mind. That's what we championed, and that's what I've always found. Sometimes I feel like a body just attached to thought. And the thing is like, it's incumbent on all of us to fight for someone whose individuality is being taken, most especially our own. So for me, I always think we should back up and like, what are you first? You might be an alien, but if you're not an alien, you're human. and you're human before you're a man or a woman, and or trans or whatever you are, queer, like gay identifying, you know, all the different categories, which is fine. A lot of people, they find community that way. I lived in a very unusual way. I'm charmed during that period. It was so weird. You know, I prepared for quarantine my whole life for a long time because I was in this weird position where I had to hire people to keep people away from me. I couldn't leave my house. I was locked in a really pretty house, and it was a miserable 5 years.
Yeah. Why did that happen?
Fame, very unusual. TV fame, you're in people's living rooms and they make relationships with you. And when you see them, their eyes would like dilate and just, you know, I was in the Vatican, and I say this in my book, Brave, and I got chased out of there and they pulled a hunk of my hair out. Like, and I was like, what the hell? Like, so it was literally unsafe, and I'm 5'3". And so this huge group of taller people encloses around you, and you're just like, I would just shut my eyes and pray for it to end. And so it became really unsafe going outside. So quarantine is like a natural, and I wrote the song Lonely House on my album really for that period.
Okay. So how is quarantine going for you? Like when this all started, how did you feel about this shift of our lives and what's happening in the world?
It honestly felt kind of like my old life, except for there's death involved now.
Wow.
So I'm uniquely suited to being by myself. But everyone likes to have the option of going out into the world. And right now, though, I think, honestly, if you are in the privileged and lucky position like we are, that we can work from home, although I lost all 5 jobs for this coming year, so I'm not working, but I'm talking to you guys. If you're not worrying about where you're going to get your baby's next formula from, if you're not worried, if you're not in a massive line of cars at a food bank, you know, and you can pay your rent this month, then I think it's really important for us right now to look at, you know, this is a really unique chance. When we get out into the world again, you know, it's like a coming out party. We get to reintroduce ourselves to the world. So if you have the luxury of being a bit okay right now and being able to go internal and really look at who you are, what your belief system is, who you want to be when you come out of this, because we can come out as amazing 2.0s. Given a grace period where people kind of forget in some ways, or will, about our characteristics, you know, they'll remember our personality and our history, but you can really reintroduce yourself. Who do you want to be when you come back out?
You know, and we're talking to Rose McGowan, actress, activist, just my all-around queen. But when you say that, I think about how that's a lot easier said than done for so many people. You know, I think for me personally, this time has been such an emotional roller coaster.
Oh,
I
it
feel
is,
like,
and it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all being faced with things that
we've
we
never
probably
faced.
would. Yeah. So how have you been dealing with that? How have you been handling these triggers and going through that?
I let myself cry when I want to cry. Last night was really hard for me. Last night, personally, and then just the weight of the world, and just like knowing, you can feel it when you tap into collective thought. Almost, you can feel this like terror and this pain and suffering, and that gets to you, you know. And also it's scary. What happens when we leave these walls again? Like what's the financial world going to be like? What the fuck? We have no idea. And that is terrifying. Being powerless is really, really scary. And I don't agree. There was some dickhead who came out like right after the quarantine started in America with this like thing that went viral. Like, if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill or a new
we've been talking about
that. You know what? Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. If you come out of this with your marbles intact, good for you.
Yeah, right.
You know, and what I mean is, by going deeper, is how I was a homeless 13-year-old, and I write about that in my book Brave too. And I was taken in. Now we would call them trans girls, but back then they were called drag queens. I was taken in by 2 drag queens and a queer stripper named Tina. Wow. And crisscross the west coast of America. I used to turn myself in at police stations and say I was a runaway from X place and start crying. They'd buy me a bus ticket. I'd go there. I'd take acid. I'd dance in the gay clubs. I was like, what? But I was 13, right? But but I was also hungry and cold, and that gets old after a while. Yeah. But my point with that was I had to raise myself. And I didn't know how. And one of the things I applied that I think, you know, I know what I made is like, we can reintroduce ourselves as 2.0s, even though we're going through a lot of sorrow right now, and depression, loneliness, isolation. But what I did was like, because I lived on my own pretty much from then on, was like, how do I become the person I'm supposed to be? So I just implemented this kind of, I guess now you would call it behavioral therapy. But I was like, what would I do if I was the 10% better version of myself? If I was just that much better in everything I did, either whether it's my skill sets, either whether it's mastering something, or but really more intentionally and personally. Like, who do I want to be as a young woman? Who do I want to be as a human, more importantly? Because it was more about that. I never really identified with girls and women. I didn't, and I found heterosexual men really scary. And I found
because they are.
They are. They're I'm out. Like, if you go to a straight club, not now because I'm older, but like that mean that, especially in North America, that must mean you want to be grinded on. You know, it's like
even for me being a queer man of color, you know, for me, like. A masculine, you have to, as a Black man, I'm told that I have to be this masculine energy. And even coming down to what I'm wearing, there's always been that. I didn't grow up with a father. I grew up with a strong, you know, Black woman who took care of me. And so I always felt comfortable around women. And when I was placed around men, I was like, wait, are y'all trying to make me into something that I'm not? Yeah, and so that's what I mean by that. That's why it's like
for their comfort.
Yeah. To validate.
And one of the things that I say, to validate their illusion and their rule structure that is invented. You know, that there's a line I say in Lonely House of Needs to Die. The hymn I speak of told you lies of original sin and dirty whores, but it's not true and never fair. Think who wins when you're quiet, right? And that's like the directly attacking, you know, church ideology and religious ideology of like, no, you don't get to make us what we are because some dude in the past thought this is what we should be. No, that doesn't work for me. And one of the things people can be better, that is behavior therapy. Pearl.
I want to talk about this behavioral therapy because I think hearing this, just even from you now and just from what you've shared in the past, you've been through a lot, to say the least, a lot of trauma. And how do you get yourself through that and let yourself grow out of that so it doesn't become your story? Or are you empowered by that story? Like, it's that I find that balance.
You know, I think it's just one of those weird things that I've probably the North Star in my life. The thing that I understood at a very young age was that people wanted me to lie so they'd be more comfortable. And white lies, quick lies, little lies, like, are you like this? Or identify as, or what, like if and it didn't make people, okay, now I'm figure this out. But I'm like, I'm not here for your illusion. I'm not. And I can't. And so, or like just whatever, they want you to go along the kind of negging thing that they do, and you're supposed to just take it, right? All that kind of stuff. And I think if you fight for who you really are, if you fight for your individuality, and so many of your listeners obviously do because they're listening to you know, and they'll relate to this because they've had to fight for their individuality. You know, I used to do counseling, you know, Covenant on Vine, and it's a facility. It's called Covenant House, and they had them all over the country, a few, but they do
for youth, for
homeless youth. But I'm going out with Marilyn Manson back in the day. I was like back to the community, you know, the women, the trans women that raised me, that saved me from getting raped on the streets numerous times. I love, that have been intertwined with my life forever. And so what I did is I would volunteer, and I wasn't a therapist, but I would sit in with a therapist. And the thing is, there's so many homeless queer youth and trans youth, they get thrown out of their house, of course, and they somehow they make it to Hollywood, and they have this dream of, I'm going to be discovered, and that's going to be how it is. And one of them, I remember in there was talking to me. He's like, yeah, my friend that I came out here with, they just ditched me and now I'm alone, but fuck them and blah, blah, blah. And I go, the way I can do it is, the therapist is like, well, how does that make you feel? And he's like, fuck them, you know, with the defense mechanism up. And I was like, no. I think the question is, I think, and I could say it because I wasn't a therapist, I would say, really, if it were me, that would hurt me so much. I would have lost my anchor. I would feel abandoned. And I would feel quite lost, and it would hurt me deeply. That's how it would affect me. And they started crying, right? Because that it is true. That, you know, anger covers pain. And a lot of the public has seen of me, especially in the last 3 years, I had to be angry. I had to be passionately angry. Righteous justice pushes thought forward. My goal was not Me Too. My goal was the deep cultural reset. It's like, wake the up. They labeled me with Me Too. That's Tarana Burke, and it's not me, and that's her communication tool. And it's a brilliant one. Did this happen to you? Me Too. That had never happened before. There had never been a communication tool, but the media conflated it and made it into a movement, making it sound like there's all these scary women with pitchforks in the street, right? I haven't seen any yet. Scary women with pitchforks. It's literally it was a cultural reset of people saying, what? I don't have to take this shit? Oh my God, you're right. And it was a deeply triggering time for people. So, and I know for a lot of people, and certainly for me, seeing, my rapist, disgusting face every day, and every interview going, well, he says it's consensual with a big smile, when they could have just said he denies the allegations, right? It was really gross. And the way the media is, they're slut shaming, they're nasty to women, they're nasty. And there's someone I know in Black Lives Matter, actually, pretty high up, and they were like, the reason they have such a problem with you, Rose, is because you don't act like what a traditional white woman is supposed to act like.
So that is what I've been sitting here thinking the entire time. If I'm being quiet, and I love this candid. Let's be candid here, because you are, on that, you aren't a traditional white woman, right? You are fighting for, and you're holding the mic and you're passing the mic.
I don't think I'm traditional, but I think I'm untraditional.
You're not, that form of what a traditional white woman would be. And you have been, using your platform to amplify a lot of other groups of people, marginalized people. But in that own, I guess, in your own time of doing this and learning so much about this process of activism, have you had to reflect on your own kind of privilege over the years, and has your awareness changed over things?
Yes, definitely. But I also, I saw it from very young. And there's no way to say this without sounding like my Black best friend. But in fact, she was my Black best friend. So there she was. Lydia. When I would go down the street with Lydia when I was 14 years old, she's very beautiful, dark skin. And I would notice the difference. What she got was a double dose. Because, when you're a girl and you walk by someone, they catcall you, and then you walk by and ignore them, or you give them a dirty look, they're like, bitch, you're not that hot anyway. That's what I would get, right? She would get, bitch, you're not that hot, you Uncle Tom.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that from a very early age, it's not like all of a sudden I woke up one day and was like, oh, I have privilege that other people don't. No, fuck that. When I was 14, I was with her in an area called the Central District, which is where I went to school, which was would be South Central, back in the day. Like some days we couldn't leave because there's drive-by shootings, shit like that. But that was where I was in a school for the weird kids that didn't fit anywhere. But it was, we were doing protests for kids being shot by the cops there. I've known about this shit for years. I've known about priests being pedophiles for years. Just nobody was doing anything, and nobody would really talk about it. And I was like, just have the damn discussion, you fuckers. So my activism was just have the damn discussion, you fuckers. And yes, I know in intersectionality, I know those other people have layers and layers and layers of shit I do not have to unpack. But I do have to unpack other things, because to be a free human, I do.
So, but the reason why people don't want to have the conversation is because they're afraid of that label of automatically being called a racist. They're afraid of even acknowledging, oh, wait a second, I'm not a racist. I don't even know what that means, instead of acknowledging, hey, no, I'm not that, but guess what? I do play a part in a system that does not benefit people of color or marginalized groups.
And you know what? One time, I was 16, and I was walking by a Black man on the street, and my purse fell open, and I grabbed it to shut it, and he kind of went like that, and I was like, oh, fuck. God damn it, he thinks I'm grabbing my purse because of him.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, it just split open. But those are the tiny moments we need to look at, because there's the big obvious racism, and then it's the tiny ones, the insidious ones. And if you look at your mind and your belief systems and your racism and your fucking misogyny, because the queer community, the gay community, deeply misogynistic. Women are the most misogynistic of all straight. Straight women I find to be the most misogynist. The internalized misogyny, right? And we have to unpack this stuff. So if you look at your life like a big piece of fabric, right? And the obvious fears and hurts are big holes in that fabric. But the finer threads of thought that are the things that fuck us all up and keep us in this fucked up state are the ones, oh, that's a poison thought. Did that get implanted in me, or is it native to me? And I think it's really important to like do, like sometimes like once a year, I'll write down a list of my belief systems and I'll challenge them. And like from micro to macro, big to little, like what is my tiny belief in this? What is my big belief? And how can I be better in that? And I'll also make a fear list, because so many people get stuck in the fear in this, like it's this hamster wheel, but we don't go to what's the worst case scenario. For me, what kept me in Hollywood for, I think, far too long, was I was so terrified, rock bottom, of being homeless again. And finally, I had to get to the point when I made a fear list. I mean, it was like it kept me up at night. My stomach would like eat itself instead of sleeping. And that was when I had like $4 million in the bank from Charm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like the fear when I had money was greater than
it's the scarcity. It's the scarcity.
Yeah. And so again, how did you let that go?
I had to get to the point. I was like, you know what? I am blessed to not be schizophrenic. I'm lucky enough to not suffer from a mental illness where if I was homeless, I wouldn't be able to get out of it. If I was homeless now with my faculties intact, I would be able to get the fuck out of it. Come hell or high water, I would claw my way out like I did before.
Yeah.
I would be able to do it again. And that just like, you know, and is finance scary? Is, you know, I don't work in Hollywood anymore and I don't act anymore. And I prefer, you know, I'm an artist and I always was, but I was told I was a commodity. And as a commodity, I was told I wasn't worth much and that you're easily replaceable. There's another one just like you next in line. You know what, motherfuckers? There's not another one like me. I'm me. Sorry.
Yes. I feel like, I think it's really important. Everyone needs to know that. And then like, at what point do you just stop taking gigs? I'm sure you have people approaching you still about projects. No? Or like what was that turning point for you?
Well, when I shaved my head 5 years ago, I knew I was going to war because and it's like pre-production in a movie, right? You get things ready for the production part. The production part of taking down Harvey Weinstein was getting the articles, the exposés out there in the New York Times, and then eventually it went to the New Yorker. But originally, like I helped set up, I was the first person with both journalists and with Ronan Farrow, a very great journalist, and Rich McHugh to go on record. But I played NBC, who was early in the game, one of the people in the expose, off of the New York Times because I know male ego. I knew it from Hollywood. And it's easier to get a dude in a pissing contest than to get them to do what's right.
Yeah.
But did it take you, I'm sure, a long time to be like, okay, this is now the time to share it? Like, what was that turning point?
Trump.
Yeah.
Because what he needed, and I'm going to paraphrase the great Dr. Martin Luther King inelegantly and maybe add a cuss word, which maybe not, just in honor of him. But he has this letter that he wrote, or this article that he wrote, or this missive, and in it, the gist of it, what he said, which really always resonated with me, although honestly, I've always been more of a Malcolm X girl. But the gist of what he said was, give me a Southern racist over a Northern liberal. At least I know what I'm dealing with.
I mean, that's right. You know, you want that type of racism in front of your face. You don't want nothing behind your back.
Yeah.
You don't want the hidden shit. And he was dealing a lot with the media, of course. Right. And that's the part that's the Northern liberal part. And what I noticed with Trump, what he did when he was running, it was like all of a sudden the Northern liberal media had this, because it's run, you know, by all men. These 6 giant media corporations that kind of control the world and thought. I was like, they were like, what? Black people are getting shot in this. This is what this is racism. And they finally, this is what women have been talking about all the time with Donald Trump's grabbing by the pussy. Oh my God, this is what sexual harassment and assault and the thought process looks like and is like in those kind of men and the power abusers, right? And so I needed Trump. If Hillary had won, there's not a fucking chance I'd be able to do what I did. Not a fucking chance, because she was deeply in bed with that machine.
Well, I think what's interesting is even because I know, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. We saw your post on, and you kind of rediscovered, you know, especially with everything happening in Me Too and the stuff that's going on with Joe Biden and how no one's talking about his own allegations.
It's a massive cover-up because it's a massive cover-up. It's a conspiracy and it's a cover-up. And I know because they did it to me. And I'm watching it again. I've been talking to Tara Reade, who is just, you know, the media, the way they painted her, of course, they painted me like a crazy drug addict whore. Don't listen to her. They did that for years and years. So people had either they were deep into me and understood me that I was different, or they're like, I would go outside and be like, I want a tuna sandwich. Imagine for 22 years, someone paid off the media, which he did, and that was proven, Weinstein, to make you appear crazy. And they're doing that to Tara Reade with Biden. And like, people are like, yo, to get a job in a senator's office in the 90s as a woman, do you know how fucking hard that is? Yeah. You know her credentials she had to have to just be let into that office. She went to law school. She's an incredibly accomplished human, far more than me, like educationally. But they're painting her like she's just this flaky, like Putin-loving weirdo. When in fact, she tweeted about Putin once and said, like, basically was saying, like, the media, like, they have a bad guy all the time, but what if he does do, you know, basically, like, look at who the source is. Look at who the source is. You know, we have to understand, when I came to America, the Russia thing was off the chain. I grew up with, like, nuclear war about to happen at any time.
Yeah.
And they would, you know,
it's not like a lot has changed necessarily from that, but I think that is interesting. You know, like we saw that post of you. It looked like you had been, you know, obviously
that was last night.
Emotional.
Emotional.
Which that's what I wanted to know about. You know,
and that you're disappointed by being a Democrat, and that do you not want to call yourself a Democrat anymore? Like, what does that mean to you?
It means that here's the thing. The Democrats have sold everybody this line, most especially, I feel, African Americans. And maybe by not being an African American myself, I don't have the place to say this, but what I can see is that they're the great white hope. We're going to help you. What have you done? Because I still see communities in poverty. I still see police, you know, as you do, shooting young Black men unarmed. I still see, you know, and harassing and vilifying and painting. And Fox News is still painting, you know, the Black man as a scary boogeyman, which is just beyond like that. And I remember when I was like, you know, in the 90s, the big thing was about how Black men leave their children. Like, that was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just, and I see Black guys with their kids all the time. And I'm sure just like, and I was raised, you know, fuck my father.
Oh, for sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
but here's the thing. I think that messaging is right. I think it's a good time. But what do you say to people who are saying, yes, that messaging is right, especially people of color? They're like, yeah, we can't continue to be used just as, especially for Black women, because Black women lead the charge in the Democratic Party.
And yet they don't give them the voice they deserve.
Well, but what do you say to, okay, well, that is a good message, but right now we're trying to get out of Trump. We're trying to get Trump out of the White House.
So vote to get him out, I guess. But for me, I don't live in America. I don't intend on living in America again. I don't like America. I think it's a beautiful place. There's a lot of beautiful people there, but there are not fine people on both sides. They're not. And I had an oversaturation of the not fine people in my life. I had a really, really hard time. And it was golden hand. It was a comfortable, luxurious hard time. It was the golden handcuffs, but my mind got fucked with so deeply. All the inferences that women in society, like, oh, I have to have long hair to be attractive, that was told to me literally directly. So it's like a hotline from the studio head, which is the you know, old white man in power God structure.
Right.
Like, the studio will be really upset with you. That's what the studio says. You have to have long hair, because if the men in Hollywood don't want to fuck you, they won't hire you. I was like 15. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be homeless again, so I grow my hair, and hence why I shaved my head. You know, I don't know what I say to people. I'm going through my own personal journey with that. I can't be a Democrat. I would never be a Republican. I don't belong to the system. And it's not just I had this epiphany last night about the Democrats. Like, Hillary Clinton actively, through her spokesperson, shut down the NBC expose of Harvey Weinstein. He was her number one supporter. I gave a speech like 2 years ago in Central Park, and she was on the side of the stage about to come on after me. And in my speech, the last thing I said, because I'm me, was like, make no mistake, Hollywood deified Harvey Weinstein. He was their cult leader, but he was protected by the Democratic Party. Good night. And then she
Did she say anything to you after that?
The Queen of Shade.
Well, it was funny. They invented some photo shoot I had to do. And I was like, what? Who, photographer that went? And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't find him. But it was really just to keep me away from the backstage area where she was. But then when I was walking out of Central Park, I saw her in her all black car. And I saw her face behind, like the outline of her face behind the blacked out window. And I just see her go like that. I was like,
Well, so I think this is interesting in terms of like the beauty of how you process things, and you want to share that authentically because that's your process. And how do you balance between that and knowing that when you put something out there, people will run with it and create a story around it and a narrative around it, even though you're not maybe at the place that you're ready to share exactly where you're at. How do you deal with that?
I'm so used to being, I got to a point, I was so hated for so long by mainstream media because what Harvey Weinstein did, and this has been proven, was he would buy off journalists, like from Vanity Fair to the New York Post to allegedly Perez Hilton, to all these people, and say, if you ever see a picture of, say, Rose McGowan, he had a list. I was number one on his list with the red line through my name, the most dangerous, because I never signed a non-disclosure agreement. I refused back in the day. And it was just exhausting, and I never understood until it was confirmed later through actual like memos that had been seen and discovered, documents that had my name with a red line through it. I'd always suspected. I was like, why does Perez Hilton draw dicks on my face and whore? And how old is she? 65, 75, 85 on my face. Why do I have like and he would make fun of the veins on women's hands. Like, now we have to worry about that. Just disgusting misogyny and terrorizing people. And it was, for me, it was not fun to even leave my house because the paparazzi at that time, like Lindsay Lohan was off the chain. They were terrorizing Britney to sell magazines. And once Instagram and Twitter came along, how I process is like that I don't have all the answers. But I do have a lot of questions, and I can push a thought. And one of the things I did with Planet Nine, which is very different, one review from Variety was like, I really expected Riot Girl yelling. And I'm like, it's not me. What I did with Planet Nine, and I wrote it and created it at the same time I wrote Brave, my book. So they really go tandem. The album's like the reward for the book in a way. And the album is really transportive, and it's music for healing. And I mixed it on something called a 432 hertz instead of a traditional pop music 440. And 440 is what you hear on the radio. And they do that on purpose so that when it goes to advertisement, they use the 432 frequency, and it softens your brain. And you're more likely to just stay for the advertisements and not change the channel. The Nazis use 440. That's what they do. Right. So mixing Planet Nine on a 432, and I used Beyonce's mixer actually for two of my songs.
Hey.
Hey. Because I needed some bangers. Cyrene is a banger.
Yes, such a banger.
Such a banger. And Now You're Here. And then the other ones, all the other songs I had mixed by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. They do incredible scores for film. They did The Social Network, which I didn't like as a film, but I love the score.
Yeah.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the score, the pinpoint sound quality in it. And I was like, who is that guy? And I found him through a dating app, weirdly, because I didn't know.
Was it Raya? Did you find him through Raya?
No, I've never been. No. It was Tinder. And I'd never been on before, but my friend was like, I was like, how do I mix an album? I've only been in Hollywood. The only other job I had besides Hollywood in my life was working at a funeral home when I was 14. How the fuck do I make an album? But I cobbled it together, and I produced. I like making, close to masterpieces. That's what I aim for.
Yeah.
I aim for things that are bulletproof and have a lot of thought. I directed a movie 5 years ago now. That was nominated for Grand Jury Prize at Sundance. I aim for like high level art, right? And I know this album heals people in a really unique way. And I only decided 10 days ago to release it.
You didn't have a strategy? You were just going to do it? Okay.
I was coming up, that was being worked on by, people behind the scenes, but I kind of thought, actually, right now we're fucked. Right now there's a lot of trauma, and people cannot travel outside, but they can use this album, which is like meditative music, even if you want to get up and move your body to it.
Yeah.
They can use this to travel inside, and to travel within their mind, and to travel within their emotions, because I wanted to give people with the music too grace and space to have their own thought and feelings. I get a lot of messages from people that I cried in the middle of the album, not because of what you were saying, but it was just a release. And it is in one of my lyrics that I sing in Green Gold is only here to paint colors on the sun, only here to see the fires run. Because I deeply believe as spirits, as humans, we're meant to and they take, by labeling us so young and by forcing us to conform so young, they steal our emotional paint box. I'm supposed to have every color available to me in my emotional motherfucker, back the fuck up. So what I say is we're only here to paint colors on the sun. That means I was imagining probably stoned, that I had like a million billion mile long paintbrush, and I could paint colors that I wanted on the sun as my canvas. And
oh my God, am I crying right now?
Yeah, she's crying. She's the most. I knew. You know what? I knew we were not going to get throughout this interview without one of us crying.
Oh my God, no, that was beautiful.
But it is. It's beautiful.
No, it resonated. It's really, yeah. So like that is, we're like a lot of times depending on how we grew up or who we're around, we're told at a certain point, like dim the light, just dim the light because it feels more. And because it feels more comfortable for that person. And because we want to be accepted and validated, we do. But then as we get older, it totally impacts us until we realize we can't live like this because life's too short.
Right. I would put for that acceptance and validation or not all that. Validation most especially. Validation, like, who are you to validate me? Fuck off,
know.
You know?
Trust me.
Like, and I fully understand. Yeah, right. And I hope I wish they didn't get stuck over and over and over in a system that they have to try to get out of with their mind and unpack, because that takes up so much of our life, you know. And for me, I had to try to unpack things and think only when I wasn't working, because I for 22 years was other people more than I was myself. And that's why, like 5 years ago when I shaved my head, or 6 years ago, I was like, it was a direct cut from Hollywood. But I also, and the side effect I realized immediately, which was bizarre, was that men and women could hear the words coming out of my mouth for the first time in my life. And I was like, whoa, what is, it was like all of a sudden people like weren't like tuning into what you're saying. And I realized
the spotlight was on.
No, it was because I think I glitched the matrix as to what a traditional woman is supposed to look like. And by removing that, and so I was like, I wonder if I could get so women could be listened to without having to shave their heads. That would be an interesting thing. You know, and I've had reports of like this writer I met in Hollywood. She was like, I'm in the writer's room on a sitcom and it's the first time I'm ever being listened to. So I know some of the effect. You know, my goal was a 10% cultural reset. After that, it's up to you. But I watched my father as a cult leader. He was very good, but he was a leader, and he was like a rock star, and Jesus was his guitar. But I watched him wire people's minds for the benefit of the system he was in, right? I watched him wire people's minds. And what I can offer with Brave and other works of mine is I can take that back by just 10%, I feel. And after that, it's up to the person. But I really can unwire. It's like a weird special skill set. And it's not to be like me. It's just to question just enough of the system. You know, my book, it's sold as an autobiography, but that's a Trojan horse. It's really, I break the fourth wall. I was watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off, an old movie where he talks to the camera. Thanks. And he talks to the camera and he's breaking the fourth wall. He's talking to the audience. And I was literally thinking of Ferris Bueller's Day Off when I started writing my book. I was like, I'm going to break the fourth wall and talk to the reader. Then I'm going to go back into my stories. So I posit questions, theories, and what. And it just, and in the last lines of my book, which is an important book, and I will say that, the last lines are, I know you can. I know you have it in you just by being brave. And I wanted to get people to be more brave in their life, to stand up for themselves, to be less scared of going up against not the system, but just someone who's trying to, like, I hate it when, especially men, but women like, oh, you're like this. And I'm like, you don't get to say what I'm like. You don't know me, you know? And if you did know me, you still don't get to tell me what I should be or how I should be in this world.
Is that emotionally taxing? Is it the activism, the putting yourself out there, fighting so much? Have you ever gotten to a point where you say it's enough? Are you going to get to that point?
I do take time off. You know, I do take time off. I had, but honestly, it was stressful until Harvey Weinstein went to jail and prison. It was like the stress level was so acute. My shoulders used to be like up here, and you could see the muscles. Wow. They'd be spasming. On my back, you could see this curve, like at the height of all that insanity. And it was spasming so bad, I would walk down the street bent. I couldn't raise my head, just like leaking tears, like parallel to the ground almost. I looked like those old ladies walking in the street with the back hump. Yeah. And that's just direct cause. It is deeply stressful. I know it's taken years off my life. It's probably made me look older. God damn it. You know, stuff like that. But ultimately, I just have a weird skill set. And if not me, whom? Who used the system to game the system like I did? Well, I knew I was going to tear it down, always. Yeah. I knew I had to shut my mouth and take the shit for a long time. And that eventually I was like, fuck this all. And I was like, this is a cult. Hollywood is a deep cult. They operate exact. Don't tell anybody what happens here. There's never like truth about it. They have the Republicans and the Trumpers going, Hollywood is a bunch of liberal elitists that tell us what to do and don't act like what they preach. And they're right. They're not wrong. They can't see us in their own backyard, but they're right.
Can you take us back to that moment, if you're comfortable, when you did find the news out that Harvey was going to jail, and you kind of, was there any peace at that moment?
There wasn't peace until he was sentenced, because I thought the entire time he'd buy his way out of it, because I know so much about the behind the scenes stuff that's going on. I mean, you know, it's like the deep corruption, and it was democratic deep corruption that was keeping him safe, even during the trial, him continually going to the hospital, like stuff like that, just to not be in jail, right? How he's treated in the media, they keep referring to him as fallen producer, disgraced producer. I'm like, instead of convicted rapist, you tell me if you're covering a black man in there, a young black man who's convicted of rape, would you not start it with convicted rapist? Yeah, you're gonna, not fallen man rapes.
I mean, that was the Central Park Five, right? That was Central Park Five when Donald Trump took out that large ad in the New York Times. Based, you know,
and the New York Times allowed it.
Yeah,
and the New York Times allowed it.
So when you say the Democrats, what do you mean the Democrats are the ones that continue to keep him like almost safe in a way?
Shielded.
Well, I mean, like the DA, for instance, the district attorney that was prosecuting him had declined to put charges against him 3 years before and took huge donations from Harvey's lawyers, you know, and now I'm expected to believe that this guy's going to successfully prosecute him. They brought the weakest cases, where they brought the most complicated cases where they still had an ongoing relationship with their rapist, which happens because you want to go back to normal. You want to pretend that everything is normal in your life and that you are like how you were. People go into this, a lot of rape victims, like, well, if I make him breakfast and I wasn't raped, this is all fine. You know, it's like a weird psychological thing. But there was a lot of like for me, I didn't have to unpack an ongoing relationship with him. It was so cut and dried. It was a 10 a.m. breakfast meeting in a dining room, and everybody shuffled me up to the presidential suite. People have this idea of hotel rooms that it's like what we go into, you know, you open the door and there's a bed. No, this is a massive top floor of a massive hotel. This is where Obama stays. This is where Harvey Weinstein stays, right? There's 3 offices in there. Like it's massive. So, and that's where everyone did meetings. So 10 a.m., I was in the middle of my second film for his company. So going back to those cases, what was interesting was that, and this is where I think my work and the work of others who have raised their voices has permeated and changed, because it was 6 white men on the jury. And I was like, motherfuck me. I was just so stressed, the whole thing. I was like, how the fuck? But somehow these men, luckily, and the women on that jury, they saw through it. They saw through the old school victim shaming and blaming and slut shaming and what they do to the women. It was nasty. And they had never successfully prosecuted a case in anywhere in the world, and especially America, where there's an ongoing relationship. There had never been a single prosecution, which is why I believe in my heart they brought those 2 cases. And because he was acting bored through the whole thing. One girl, Jessica Mann, poor baby, had this like massive panic attack on the stand, and they had to shut down court for that day, and he slept through it.
Wow.
He couldn't be fucked.
Yeah.
So do you feel a sense of
relief,
like reciprocity and relief, or
I don't know? I feel like I have a 350-pound foot off my back right now.
Yeah.
Because I had this big fat ogre's like foot on my neck for 22 years. And all I ever did was get raped by him. That's what I did to deserve it. And I had turned to a camera that morning. They were following me. It was MTV, A Day in the Life of Rose McGowan. And I turned to them and I said, I think my life is finally getting easier. I think my life is finally getting easier. And then I went into the meeting. And I remember at the door and wouldn't look me in the eye. And I was like, well, they're not very friendly. Now I know why. It was all set up. The whole thing was a machine. You know, his rape factory was more important to him than his movies. The movies were a cover. And his deep ties to the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton spokesperson, is the one that called NBC and got it shut down.
Wow.
And that's in Ronan Farrow's book that, you know, is a bestseller, and he won a Pulitzer for his reporting.
No, it's incredible that, but I mean, you using your platform in the way you do, I feel like obviously with the Me Too movement, there was a lot of, even times that there was a lot of
stuck on me. I'm not Me Too movement. Right.
No, you're not. No, you're not. But I think the celebrity
movement.
And that's what I want to know from you, though, because it does seem like you saw a lot of celebrity get involved, and a lot of times you start to wonder, is this genuine? I mean, you have like Alyssa Milano, who's always tweeting, and
yeah, that's not my shit.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right?
So how do you distinguish? But wait, how do you distinguish between the people that are like sincere versus not sincere? Because it does feel like women come together and they're like rah rah rah. We're all
they're dressing in all black, right? It's an audio program. Can you be?
I have really big middle fingers right up. I'm not big, but I wasn't like, as Marilyn Manson used to say, I was not born with enough middle fingers for that situation. And it felt like they were dancing and having cocktails, celebrating rape by wearing all black. It was so fucked up. And I was like, yeah, people have really changed the world by wearing dresses and staying silent, haven't they? That's exactly what you do. Because, you know, that's how the world changes, clearly. No, that stuff's bullshit. It's bogus. It's all lip service.
And so,
right?
and like, yeah.
And I do believe that some of these women really care about other women. Arquette very much cares. You know, there are real people out there. But for me, like Rosanna Arquette, you know, one of the Arquette, Patricia's sister, Patricia's very vocal and she gets put down a lot by the right wing. But Rosanna's true blue. You know, there are people I've met, but they're not the fancy ones. They're not the elite ones. And I get a lot of questions like, who in Hollywood has supported you? I'm like, what?
Well, it's like you can call these women out, but also it goes into the line of being like, well, you're a woman calling another woman out. Isn't that the whole opposite of what the movement is?
No, the movement is, no, it is not. There is no fucking movement. It was people waking up. It was a cultural reset. What happened is my book came out. So the articles broke. 10 days later, Alyssa Milano tweets the Me Too thing. Right? And then, of course, it's discovered that it was really Tirana. And then my book comes out right at that time, which was just such a stupid time for the publisher to release it. It was too much. And I had to go on book tour. I had to do all these interviews. So every question was about Me Too. And I was like, you guys, and I've said from the beginning, I've credited Tirana over and over, and I've said it from the beginning. Like, this is my thing is I'll challenge women. I'll challenge men. I don't give a fuck who I challenge. I'll challenge the gay community to be better. I'll challenge everybody. I'll challenge my fucking self.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not about not challenging women. Please, I don't stand for bullshit. I don't care who you are. If you're fucking lying and you're presenting one face but really another thing, that's not for me, and it's not for the world. And we're running out of time. We don't have time for the fuckery and the lies. That's what I feel. I feel that deeply in my bones. Look at the planet. Look at the planet being like, get the fuck off me right now. Get the fuck off.
That's very clear. I mean, there's something happening. I think
do you think if it was called Father Earth, it would have been raped as much?
Oh, you know what?
That's a cool. That was a mic drop. I mean, that was like in a line from a song.
Well, it's misogyny everywhere, right? Misogyny is at the root of, unfortunately, this world and this country.
Yeah. So, all right. So that was a lot amazing stuff to take in. I think that it's interesting for people that are still fans of, like, you know, Charmed, and they see Alyssa Milano.
But it's okay. But we did our jobs. We did our jobs, and we did it well, and we loved the fans, and we still do. And
I think it's amazing because you are, like, it seems like you're in similar spaces, but then there's also a lot of this conflict. Yeah, because I think it's interesting with the whole Me Too thing that happened with Alyssa, and then also now with she's still defending Biden. She's and coming out about that. So what are your thoughts on all that? Do you guys connect and just like for conversations about these things?
She's like, I talked.
No, I don't connect with people that are frauds. I don't. And I wish she was real, because I love people that are real. Yeah. I wish people that, this is a person who was a child actress born into the system, married to a CA agent. And it's not a free mind. It's not how it works for me. I'm kind of a one-woman band. I don't have backup. I don't have, I have allies. I talk to people on Instagram and Twitter that have 43 followers. Those are my allies. Those are my people. And not the fancy ones, not the elite ones, not the ones trying to get on TV, not the ones trying to, get into the political sphere, whatever it is. I do better work from the outside. Like, I relentlessly went after the New York Times, starting like about 4 weeks ago for sitting on, they interviewed Tara Reade, Joe Biden's accuser, a year ago. They've sat on it for a year. And then they finally waited until he was basically the presumptive nominee to release it, so everyone could say, why did she wait till now? You know, she didn't. She's a woman that was not famous like me. She didn't have access to microphones, right? This is just a woman, and she's been a lifelong Democrat. Like, and her mother called in to CNN, to the Larry King show. They just broke audio of that. Her mother saying, my daughter was hurt by a very powerful senator. She doesn't want to go to the media because she doesn't want basically to ruin his life. But what can I do? Is there anything I can do? It was just a mom desperate calling in to a program, like basically saying, my daughter was just raped. What do I do? How do I help her? And, you know, so that audio just came out. There's people that back this up. This is true. And
what happens now? Will people listen?
We have a window of opportunity. We have a window to get the fucker to drop out. But do you realistically think that's going to happen? No, but we have a window to fight it. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to fight it, because this is not a good person. He might have done some good things, but he's done a lot. Why don't you, Ryan, have you ever watched the Anita Hill hearings?
Oh, yes, but for sure. And I also, when he was earlier in his campaign, when he was on The View, and Joy was like, Joy Behar, she was like, why don't you just apologize? Like,
and he won't.
And he does a terrible job about it, which is why, and we talked about this yesterday on the show where, we talked about this on the show before where I was saying, well, if he has a woman vice president, I feel like she's just going to have to deal with the burden of saying, well, do you stand up for women? What do you think? Do you believe, Tara?
No, and women are so fucking tired of, and I'm tired of dealing with toxic men's shit and having our lives defined by this. I mean, you and I are talking about this right now instead of talking about my incredible work, which I know is incredible.
Which I want to go into Cyrene.
Which we're going to, because I want to talk about Cyrene, honey.
I'm just saying, but it is important, you know, and I know I should be on Twitter promoting my album right now, so I need all of you listening to help me do that.
Yes.
I have to fight dickheads instead of getting the word out that this music can heal people. The thing is like, it's a hard, sticky, America, you in danger, girl.
Yes. To quote the great Whoopi Goldberg, you in danger, girl.
Well, so let's get to your music and
let's
your
get to Planet Nine.
Planet Nine.
Planet Nine. It's a much better place. It's far less ugly.
And we love that. And Cyrene, we actually have a clip of that. So can you just tell us a bit about that song, and then we'll play that clip?
Yeah, Cyrene is made with, it's a French electronic beat with DJ Falcon, who produced my favorite Daft Punk song called Contact. And I heard that, and I tracked this producer down in Biarritz in the south of France. And he was mostly just surfing and not really giving a fuck about music right now. And I was like, I need your sounds. And this underground duo called Punishment out of Paris helped too, and it's just a banger, and it's just with the lyrics, honestly, it's the one track on there. This album, that song could be called Me Too, because the lyrics that are, you know, most people don't hear the lyrics. Some people really do. I tend to listen to lyrics and songs. Some people just listen to the music. But either way, the lyrics get into your head, right? So these lyrics are, I know your truth, I know their hate, I know your lies, I know your rage, or their lies, I know your rage, I know the truth, I know they lie. And then I'm like, take my hand. It's like literally all the women and hurt boys and girls and hurt trans women, everybody and trans men that I've been talking to, because the volume of messages that I get of people telling me these horrific stories and the volume of trauma out there, you know, so this song is directly for them. It's for the people who've been hurt, not just by sexual violence, just by the traumatic experience of being alive. And it's a beautiful song, and I wanted it to make you feel like, you know the Rolls Royces that used to have that hood ornament of the woman with her hair flying back?
Yeah.
That's what I want the song to make you feel like. On your way, if you were on a highway that was made of stars, and the lines weren't yellow lines, but they were star lines, and you're driving at night in space, this is the song for that.
All right.
Well, here's that
Cyrene.
song.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Now
that's like sounds like goddess power, goddess energy.
I think that's where I live. You know, I prefer. I always say go with goddess. I don't say go with God or like things like that. It's just choose your heroes.
Well, I know in quarantine, a lot of artists are trying to figure out, new ways of promoting their music and things like that. What are you thinking about doing? Some IG lives? Radio.com loves you and might want to do something. I'm just saying.
We'll put you together with them.
Will you help me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Here's the thing. I'm coming out in a totally new sphere that I don't know anybody in. I don't even know who I'm supposed to talk to.
Well, we got you.
Help you.
I need awesome people that can help spread the gospel of Planet Nine, because it really is a healing album, and it's also just beautiful, and the sounds or the sonic level of it, when I use the movie mixer to make the sounds, it's like when you go into the movies and you have the great speakers and you hear all these detailed soundscapes. That's why I use the movie mixer, except for on Siren. And now you're here with Beyonce, because I was like, I'm one step closer to Beyonce.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Well, we
didn't know this, but I am one step closer.
We are most definitely going to connect that and make that happen.
Degrees separated.
I'm just telling you.
We'll support you in every
you.
way. We definitely know different ways that we can get it out. So you've been focusing right now during the quarantine, obviously, getting your music out.
Right.
Do you have other things you do, like hobbies or anything to pass the time? Like,
someone's like, "What'd you do today, Pearl? What'd you do today?" I'm like, I stood up, I sat down, I texted, I FaceTimed, I house partied, I stood up, I sat down, I laid down.
Wait, I want a house party. I feel like at this point we've reached a level of friendship that we're already here. Like you're. No, we need
to. When we're done rolling, we'll trade information, and I'm going to keep talking to you guys this afternoon because we're going to house party.
You should do this isn't for this interview, but a great marketing thing would be Rose McGowan is on a house party promoting her album and doing dance party with you.
How do you? You can invite people in.
Yeah, like you invite. So imagine like something goes out like Rose McGowan.
Zoom room.
Yeah, like a Zoom. We could do a Zoom room where it's like,
oh, that would be incredible.
Channel Q's doing something like that with certain artists. What if we do it with you? This is not the end.
I would love that.
Because here's the thing. We're still going, but I'm so wonderful. Like this has been so wonderful to hear you just speak your truth and whatever we can fucking
inspiring,
to help you and just be a part of this, like your movement that is actually a movement.
Thank you.
I want to be around and put in that work because this is what this is all about, right? I didn't come into this industry even thinking like I was going to be behind a mic because I was thinking that my voice didn't count or you don't look like me who is a thickums fat black queer man and make it onto spots like this. And so I'm lucky, to be surrounded.
But yes, you do.
Yeah.
Well, now
it's not lucky. It's not lucky.
It isn't. Yeah.
It's not, people are always like, you're so lucky. And I'm like, yes. I mean, we're lucky not to be born in the slums of Calcutta and face those odds, things like that. But I know someone who is from the slums of Calcutta and has risen to great, great heights. All of us can do this. And it's not like it's fucking perseverance and you make your luck too. And then by goddess's grace, sometimes things are, luckily, they dovetail and they work together. And so my meeting you two, for example, who can help me spread the word and people that I want to remain friends with, meeting of the minds. And it's, that's an amazing human experience. And what I think we're having right now is really recognizing how much other humans mean to us because of the absence of them.
Yeah.
But what if we all tried to think differently and just be a little better every day? Just be a little bit better. Just by like a random 10%. Like, what would my best self do in this situation? What would my better self do? And imitate that. And then it comes true. And then what would I do if I was truly going to come, like I said, and I know it's easy to say when we come out of this, and I'm not saying come out of the speaking Mandarin because that's not going to happen for me. I'm like, people are like, are you writing right now? And I'm like, no, I'm fucking traumatized and I don't know what's happening outside these walls. And it feels like everyone's dying and holy shit. Right. And people are suffering. And I just think, right now what I'm doing, if people want to buy my album, which I'd really appreciate if you can afford it, it's $9 on Bandcamp. Okay. It's on Spotify. It's on all platforms. But on Bandcamp, that $9 is, I'm putting it, that a big portion is going to COVID relief. But my COVID relief specifically, and already I've made $1,000. Woo! Money in the music. But I put that towards, I'm housing 4 women and their 3 children right now in an apartment through a domestic violence boots on the ground charity that I work with in LA called East Los Angeles Women's Center. And right now, just with that $1,000, so anything that you guys out there listening can go to bandcamp.com, search for Planet 9, Rose McGowan, or just go to my website, Rose McGowan, has all the info there and info about the songs and everything. So just go to rosemcgowan.com. But if you do support that way and you can't afford it, we could house more women and children and men because the calls on men's hotlines or hotlines for rape for abuse has gone up by 17%. Women have gone up by 85%, I think. But the hotlines, and this is a UK statistic, because I was just talking about it with someone in the UK the other day. But the hotline there has gone up for 17% for men, and that's a lot in queer violence.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess knowing that you work with those organizations, one, I guess, what is your message for those going through this right now?
Jesus, I'm so sorry. And you don't deserve this. And you can be in a cult in a relationship. They can control your mind. They can control your bank account. They can control your safety, and you don't see any way out. There is a way out. It's going to be scary, and it's going to be really dangerous, because the number one date of death for a woman is when she files a restraining order. That's the number one predictor for her date of death.
Wow.
Yeah, it's dark, right?
Yeah.
But also,
it's
it
needed to
happens
say.
across. Dude, I have a designer friend. She's a big fancy designer at a big fancy fashion house. She's getting the shit kicked out of her right now in a domestic violence situation. It happens across all fucking class levels, monetary levels. It happens everywhere. And it's just a really, and right now what's happening is that, violence against women, violence against others is really triggered by powerlessness. And this is the ultimate powerlessness, right now, what we're experiencing.
Yeah,
so
we need something to control.
I think also it's good just to take a break from trauma. That's what Planet 9 is for, because I made it because I was going through such a traumatic period. I didn't know how to do anything, but I felt compelled when asked astronomers, because I created Planet 9 when I was 10. It was my invisible friend. It was my own planet. And then when astronomers found Planet 9, when they made Pluto not a planet 6 years ago, I was like, they found my planet. And then, of course, logically, I was like, I must make music for my planet.
I need to do that.
I need to do that. And it became like this compulsion, right? And I had no idea how, but I cobbled the whole thing together.
Yeah.
And I know it works. I tried it on 3 10-year-old kids in Ireland. My friend and his husband are the first gay couple allowed to adopt children in Ireland. They made new laws.
Really? We should connect with them.
I would. Oh my
amazing.
God!
They're
Please.
Amazing. Amazing humans. And they had their twin 10-year-olds, a boy and a girl, and their friend over, another 10-year-old. And so Jack, my friend, had his children lay on the floor or on the couch, but they were on the floor. And this is how I say do it. It's best to be kind of on the floor in a way, on the carpet or something, so you feel kind of connected to the energy of Earth. Then put your headphones on and then shut your eyes. Just for the first time. After that, you can move around, you can do whatever the hell you want, work out to it, run to it, dance. But the first time I really believe, because it is mind medicine, I know this to be true. So those 10-year-olds, and Jack, I hadn't thought of doing this. After the 38 minutes, their journey, they opened their eyes, and we sat there for a little bit, and he asked them, how did that make you feel, to each one? And one of them said safe, one of them said home, and one of them said free.
Wow.
And to me, that's the best review of my album I could ever get.
That is a focus group. That is a focus group.
That is a focus group.
It's ageless. It's for all ages. I love that.
It really is. I played it for 85-year-olds in Tuscany last summer. I had them lay on these, chaise lounges under the stars, and I played the music. And it went from the group was about 10 of them, and they went from age 67 to 85. Yeah. And I was just curious. I'm like, what would they think of this kind of music? Because it is different. For the 5 years I made it, I didn't listen to anything that could be kind of influential to me in that sphere. So I mostly listened to old records, hip hop, things that weren't, in the electronic space. Because I don't like hard electronic. It's too hard for my head. I like
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's like someone's smacking me on the head, and I can't really think. And this is I like floating with music, I like music that makes my arms feel like it's moving underwater, right? That's the feeling I like. So that's what I want to get.
After this, are you going to go on tour? And are you had said you had a bunch of projects that got canceled. What are you doing? Yeah. Well, even though we don't know when this will end, but if it did end, where do you take the music and all these other things that you're doing?
Well, I'm not going on tour to perform. I'm not trying to be a pop star. That's not my thing. I did perform it at something called the Fringe Festival in August, a beta version of Planet 9. And I didn't really like it. It was fine. Everybody, the audience seemed to some people were crying afterward. It was very emotional for a lot of people, but, and they were happy and they felt good. But I felt like I was interrupting my own artwork, because there's actually amazing visuals that go with this album, but because I'm in the jungle, I can't put them up. There's a teaser of the visuals on rosemcgowan.com that I've shot. I did everything. This whole project is me, because I needed it to be me. I needed it to be the voice. Yeah. So how I'm going to tour this, I really firmly believe in getting art and immersive experiences out of the 1% and away from museums and galleries. And I want to tour this in a traveling dome with people laying on the ground on something soft with the visuals wrapped around them and underneath, and they're laying and staring at this. And then with really incredible 360-degree sound. you know, and just to go have a, and I want to tour
very interactive, immersive,
and tour it through like Iowa, tour it through, you know, the South, tour it through like all these places that get ignored. That's where they need it most. And they need some relief. And the album is COVID relief in the sense on its own without even buying it. If you listen to it on Spotify, if you listen on Apple, whatever it is, the album is COVID relief because we need a little relief from the trauma right now. And I know that's why I decided to release it, because I was like, people need help. And this is what I can do to volunteer. This is how I can help.
Yeah.
But it is. And it literally, I'm just here to help people. I might fuck up. I might not always do it right. I might say the wrong words.
Yeah.
I might not be perfect. You know what I mean? But my intentions are solid and good, and I know this to be true. And I just want to make people, just offer them a little bit of hope and a better feeling, and you know, also some banger music. Hey,
yeah. Well, we love your passion and your
I love
sincerity.
you.
So
I love you.
And so we appreciate you joining us and giving us so much time. And just this combo, I feel like could go on forever because there's so many things.
Yeah, because I was like, I was like, I told your team, I was like, wait, we'll only do 30 minutes with her. But we were so in it. I was like, I'm so appreciative.
Maybe you can do a 2-parter.
Oh, no, first of all, we're making this the whole hour, honey.
Ooh.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications from radio.com. While you're at it, why don't you check out some of our other great videos.